Hello, everyone. Greetings. My name is Priya Baboo. I'm the Senior Director of Corporate and Industry Engagement for the College of Engineering at Penn State. I'm also a doctoral student in the higher education program. I'm a first gen student. I'm a proud first gen student, and that is one of the reasons why I am super excited to be a part of this summit today and share with you some of the things that I've been working on. With that, let me share my screen so we can start talking about um, what we want to discuss today. So, okay, perfect. Um, so what we want to talk today, before we get started, let's refresh ourselves of some of the challenges faced by first gen. Then a quick review of the trends in the cost of attending college, followed by a support program for the first generation students that I've been working to develop. Um, but before we get started, let's refresh ourselves of the challenges that we all face as a first generation student, right? Um, we know that federal agencies do not align on a single definition. This variation in definition underscores the complexity of identifying first generation students and serving them. The ambiguity becomes even more pronounced when universities utilize their own definitions. Um, so with that, let's look at how Penn State defines first gen. We define first generation students as those whose parents or legal guardians have not completed a bachelor's degree. Um, so, you know, where does this leave us? What is the composition of first generation students in the college population? NASPA has identified that 1 in 2 undergraduates today are first generation students. This indicates that the complexity that we talked about in the previous slide indicates that even though 1 in 2 are first generation students, according to NASPA, that number could be even higher because of the way in which we are being defined. But the most important point to consider here is that first generation students represent a significant and growing portion of the student body in higher education institutions. Not only that, many of the first generation students come from diverse backgrounds, and their experiences are not homogeneous. They represent various racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic backgrounds, but also they share intersectional identities. This again reiterates the complexity that exists in addressing the needs for the group, which can be similar in a lot of ways, but it can also be different in a lot of ways. So a one size fits all approach does not meet the needs of first gen in the varying or the diverse social, cultural, and economic backgrounds. Um, so with that background and context, what are some of the challenges faced by first generation students in accessing college? We know that college access for first generation students is hindered by financial and affordability barriers, informational and navigational barriers, academic underpreparedness, and lack of familial support. So, just a little bit of additional details around each of these, right? When we talk about financial challenges, it's the cost of tuition, textbooks, living expenses, all of the expenses that need to be incurred to afford a college degree. And these financial barriers lead to increased stress and hinder academic success for first gen. And when we talk about informational or navigational barriers, it's because of the lack of familial support, right? Like the lack of family support for first generation students. Many parents of these students do not know how the college process works. So even if parents attended college in a different country, the college process there could be completely different or greatly different from how it works in the United States. So there's a lot of complexity surrounding the college admission process, the financial aid systems, and lack of information about accurate information about higher education costs. All of these put a lot of pressure on first generation students and, you know, get them to be underprepared for their college life. It's not just how to go about getting access to information um, related to the admissions, but it is also about what classes to take and what is a sufficient high grade average if they want to attend a selective school, particularly. So first gen do not have that proper guidance from their families on what classes to take, the importance of taking an AP course, and so on and so forth, right? So they are unable to rely on the familial support, as well as to access resources that is important for the admissions process. So all of this contributes to college affordability being a significant barrier, right? And what we're seeing on this slide is an interactive survey that I did in the last First Gen Summit and last year's First Gen Summit. And as you can see from here, we asked them, what challenges did you face as a first generation student entering higher education? And the audience was first gen students, a lot of stakeholders that support the group, um, advisors, so on and so forth. And basically, what we're seeing is 80% of the audience said that affording college, the high cost of tuition was the significant barrier, right? And followed by navigating the financial aid application process, being less prepared for college, so on and so forth. But the most important point is the high cost of tuition came about as a significant barrier. So when we look at the average cost of attendance, right? So what we're seeing here are bars for private colleges, public colleges, the in-state cost of attendance, and public colleges for out-of-state cost of attendance. But before we look at the chart, cost of attendance typically includes tuition, room and board, books and supplies, transportation, and personal expenses, right? So it's the combined cost of attending college. And the numbers that we're seeing here is from a survey done by the College Board. In 2023, College Board reported that students attending four-year private colleges, they spent on average $60,000 and odd. And when you compare that with the students that spent in state at a public four-year institution was 28,840. And if you compare that to out-of-state students' cost of attending a public four-year institution, it was $46,730. But basically, what this means is there is significant cost in attending college, whether it is public or private. So when you look at how the college tuition and fees, which is just one portion of the cost of attendance that we saw in the previous slide, right, the average cost of college tuition and fees at public four-year institutions has significantly risen, has significantly increased over the last 20 years. And so what you're seeing here is when you compare the tuition 20 years ago to what it is now, it has increased over 140% with an annual average increase of 7%. That's um, a lot of money and a significant increase. And students, both first gen as well as the non-first gen students talk about financial concerns as a source of anxiety. So what we're seeing here is um, two groups, right? First gen and non-first gen student. And this is from a survey that was done by Medicat on why first gen students need extra support. So they interviewed first gen and non first gen students, and what they found was financial concerns were a major cause of anxiety, and especially for first gen students. So what you're seeing here is um, 14% of first gen students said that financial concerns caused a little anxiety. 21% said some anxiety, and 31% said financial concerns caused quite a bit of anxiety, and 34% said it was a significant cause of stress and anxiety for first gen students. Um, so when you look at what is happening in within first gen students and compare it to non first gen, when you just look at the quite a bit anxiety and very much anxiety, when you combine that, nearly two-thirds of first generation students indicate financial um, barriers or financial concerns as a significant source of anxiety. And this is the reason why most first generation students work while they're in college. And a recent study actually found that students who work while enrolled in college are about 20% less likely to complete their degrees than their peers who do not work. So, all that to say that financial burden or financial concerns um, are a significant source of anxiety for first generation students, and um, recognizing the financial hurdle, it is in our best interest to craft effective support strategies to make sure that these financial concerns don't become a become an obstacle for their educational aspirations. So with all that context, let's talk about why the need for industry support, or why am I talking about putting together a program that involves industry to support first generation students, right? So when you look at what is happening currently, the federal stimulus funding from the COVID-19 pandemic is almost coming to an end. And so the states have hard decisions to make, whether to support higher education or how much to support, and all that, right? So supporting higher education is crucial, though, for the continued success of public institutions, which in some states actually remain primarily public funded. But a growing proportion of public institutions have become reliant, more primarily reliant on student tuition and fee revenue over the last 2 decades. So, increasing reliance of public institutions on tuition and fees can increase college affordability barriers for all students, and more so for first generation students, as we saw in the previous slides. So what can industry do to support? I feel like this is where industry's role in supporting students is critical, especially first gen students, because students are the future workforce, right? And industry is already engaging students and recruiting them for internships, co-ops, etc., as they build the future workforce. We also know that some corporations actually provide a sign on bonus to those students who agree to join their organization um, after an internship. So, extending that thought of, like, providing a bonus a little further, is if only these corporations can provide scholarships to help alleviate financial challenges of first gen, that will increase the college retention and graduation rates while reducing financial stress and anxiety for first gen. So, this is what I want to talk to you about at the summit during the roundtable. I would like to get your feedback on initial ideas to the program that is being developed that will leverage corporations to financially assist first gen through direct scholarships or through corporate foundations. So I look forward to speaking with you in greater detail at the summit and getting your feedback, which can be used to refine the program. So with that, thank you so much for taking time to view my presentation. I look forward to seeing you all at the summit and engaging you on feedback for the program that would support first gen through college by leveraging industry funding. Thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you at the summit.